When you're in the Lync client, like I am here with the administrator account, you want to be able to search for other users in your environment and add them to your buddy list or add them to your personal contacts. This is handled by the address book service. For a Lync client like this, we go out to the front end server and download the address book and search through that. And you can see here, if I go to find a contact and type M, for example, I get a list here. And this is coming from the address book. These are users that have been Lync enabled. So I could come in here, pin them to my contacts, for example, right click, say add to contacts, all contacts. Also, if I'm doing things like adding phone numbers to these contacts in Active Directory, for example, if we look at the contact card here, the user doesn't have an actual PSTN number, we could do a Lync call. But if I were to add a phone number for that user in Active Directory, that would get added to the address book and eventually downloaded onto this client. Now, if we come over here and take a look, hold down Control, right click, and go to Configuration Information. You can see here that we've got a list of the URLs that we're talking to. The ABS or Address Book Service Virtual Directory on the front end pool is where we go out and communicate with the server, download the address book, and search through it here locally. Now, if we pull up the shell, I've got a remote shell instance going against the server. We'll take a look at a couple things. First, what we want to do is git cs user replicator configuration. Now, basically what this says is every time we change something in Active Directory, maybe I add a phone number or I've just recently Lync enabled somebody, we're going to wait 1 minute and then Lync's going to scan that information in Active Directory and then add it into the SQL database. At that point, every 24 hours, we'll update that address book and make that available for download. So if we take a look at git cs address book configuration, you can see here that every day at 1:30 a.m., we're going to regenerate the address book based off of the information in the SQL database and make that available for users to download. So this is configurable as well. Right now, we're just going to stick with the defaults. So let me clear this up so we can take a look at something else here. What I want to show you is a git cs user. We'll do a select display name and we'll do the SIP address as well. So notice here, I've got a bunch of Lync enabled users. I created an account for myself. Now, if I search for Mike over here, you can see that we get no results found. That's because I've recently Lync enabled that user account. So he shows up here. So I can't really search for him by his friendly name here. I can use the SIP address, though. I could search for this. That would work. Is Lync smart enough to let me query that directly? But if I wanted to do an easy search, go through the address book just using the first name and last name, that wouldn't work. So if I wait long enough, wait the 24 hours and let the Lync client actually update, eventually this will show up. But if you want to force this to happen, there's a couple of things you would want to do. First of all, you would want to do an update CS address book. So this will tell the server, and you can do a force here to make sure it forcefully does this and takes effect right away. This will force the server to basically gather up all of those changes from the SQL database and put that into the address book files. Now those files are being downloaded through the web service, and they're actually existing in that front-end server share that we created when we did our deployment. So updating that information would just be a server-side process. It's still up to the Lync client to download those files. Now usually you want to wait about 5 minutes after running this. And then from there, the client would still need to go back out to the server. And it does this randomly from 1 minute to 60 minutes, where it will go and look for the server updates and pull them down. So at this point, even though I've updated that on the server side, if I search for Mike, that's still not going to work. So what we want to do is a couple things. We want to add a registry key in order to force this. So the Lync client will determine any new changes right away, right after they're made. And we also want to clear the cache essentially on the client side and kind of force it to update. So I'm going to sign out here and exit. Now I also want to add a registry key. And in order to do this, I'm going to use the regadd command from a command prompt. So what I'm going to do here is just paste this right in. I have it on my clipboard and you can see it's kind of a long one. That's why I'm pasting it in. Essentially, we're adding a key under HKey local machine, software policies, Microsoft communicator, and the value is gal download initial delay as 0. So essentially, once the gal or the address book has been updated on the server, go ahead and download that immediately. So I always have the latest changes. So this is only required if you want to force this. You don't have to do this unless you want it to actually show up, those new users or those changes. You want those to show up right away. So I'm going to add that. We went ahead and completed that successfully. I could have run regedit and manually created that, but that's just a quick way to create a D word value there. We go in and look at the registry editor, software, policies, Microsoft communicator. There we go. There's our D word value. So I could have came in here, did a new D word and created it that way, but you get the idea. Okay, so now that that's created, want to do one other thing. In the user profile, so if we do user profile here, in the app data folder, so basically in the current user's app data in their profile under local Microsoft communicator, you're going to have a folder for the SIP address for the user. What you want to do is go in here and blow away this gal contacts file and this gal contacts.db.idx. So highlight both of those, go ahead and delete those. And the next time you restart the Lync client, it should refresh the information. So let's go ahead and try that out at this point. Okay, we're signed in as administrator. Let's look for Mike. And there we go. There's Mike Pfeiffer. So we've been added to the contacts or to the address book, and now I can add him to the contacts. So as you can see, kind of a multi-step process to manually update that address book. But again, if you wait long enough, the server will do this for you once every 24 hours.